Today we're going to talk about Harpers Ferry. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we are going to have to go to Jefferson County. We're going to have to go to the easternmost part of the state to talk about the history of Harpers Ferry. Now, this is just going to be a general overview, just a general tourism video. We're not going to go super deep into John Brown's raid. We're not going to go super deep into the battles of Harpers Ferry during the Civil War. We're just going to do a real quick overview of the town of Harpers Ferry. In 1747, the area was just known as the Hole, but Robert Harper saw potential in the area and secured 125 acres in the area where the Potomac met the Shenandoah River. 12 years of building the town and running a successful ferry, the Virginia General Assembly recognized the area as Shenandoah Falls. And then it was renamed Harpers Ferry. Then at some point someone came along and stole the apostrophe and it just became Harpers Ferry. In 1783, Thomas Jefferson, you know who Thomas Jefferson is, he came to Harpers Ferry to see the passage of the Potomac through the Blue Ridge, and he ended up with a rock and a county named after him. That's not a bad deal. He would also go on to say that the scene was worth a voyage across the Atlantic. This would prompt the 1784 Harpers Ferry tourism slogan, "Come see Harpers Ferry. It's definitely worth a 2-month boat trip and scurvy." A few years later, George Washington himself would come and visit and survey the area. At this point, there were a handful of small mills in the area, but Washington saw the potential for both water power and transportation, so in 1799, he had the United States Armory and Arsenal built there. This was one of only 2 federal arsenals, the other one being the Springfield Armory in Massachusetts. The creation of the Armory and Arsenal would turn Harpers Ferry into an industrial powerhouse. At this point, the only town in West Virginia that could outmanufacture Harpers Ferry was Wheeling. And Wheeling was no slouch itself. At this point, Wheeling was pretty much on par with Pittsburgh as far as industrial output went. Harpers Ferry had flour mills, sawmills, ironworks, tanneries, cotton mills. That's a boatload of industry. Speaking of boats, Meriwether Lewis of the Lewis and Clark expedition procured all his goodies for his cross-country expedition at Harpers Ferry. This included his boat, rifles, gunpowders, tomahawks, repair tools, spare rifle parts, a couple dozen knives, probably a couple bags of trail mix. Yep, the late 18th and early 19th centuries were pretty good for Harpers Ferry. That was until 1859 when one man and his army of 21 others would arrive in town. This man's name was John Brown. Now, I'm not going to get super detailed in the life story and raid of John Brown. That is a whole other episode. That is multiple other episodes. The group of men he led came from various backgrounds. Some were white, some were free men. At least one was a fugitive slave. Their plan was to steal the federal arsenal and start a campaign through the South, freeing slaves as they went. This was supposed to economically cripple the South and force them to abolish slavery. Within hours of entering the city, the raiders had secured the arsenal, cut telegraph wires, and even rounded up some hostages from local farms. Then when a night train arrived, things quickly got out of control after a baggage handler was shot. It's unclear whether or not that the raiders let the train go or if when gunfire broke out, the train conductor just booked it, but by morning, news had reached Washington that the town of Harpers Ferry was under siege. By late morning, a group of Marines were on their way to break this siege, led by Robert E. Lee. At the same time, a local militia had already surrounded Brown's men, cut off their retreat path, and forced them into the Arsenal engine house. On the morning of the 18th, Marines made it to the besieged engine house and gave Brown a simple choice. Come out and surrender, or we're just going to kill you here. To which John Brown claimed, "You know what? I prefer to die here." This led to the 1860 Harpers Ferry tourism slogan, Harpers Ferry, you won't want to leave here without a fight with some federal troops. Brown was finally captured, tried for treason, and executed December 2nd, 1859. Times were changing, the Civil War was coming, tensions were at an all-time high when in 1861 Virginia chose to secede from the Union. Upon announcing their secession, Virginian troops were sent to Harper's Ferry to seize the armory because, the federal government just had all these guns laying around they weren't using. But federal troops beat them to the arsenal, setting it ablaze, destroying some 15,000 weapons in the process. A colonel by the name of Thomas J. Jackson, he would eventually become known as Stonewall Jackson, a Harrison County, West Virginia native, spent the next 7 weeks recovering tools machinery from the rubble. This machinery was shipped to Virginia and North Carolina, where it would manufacture weapons for the Confederacy. In June of that same year, federal troops would push Jackson out of town. During this retreat, Jackson would destroy the B&O Railroad Bridge and several other buildings in town. This would continue throughout the rest of the war. While Harper's Ferry was strategically important, it was an absolute nightmare to try and defend. The town would change hands some 14 times throughout the war. With each siege and each retreat, more and more of the town would be destroyed. After the war, there really wasn't enough of the town to rebuild. And a few years after the war, a flood would destroy most of the downtown region. Harper's Ferry would suffer the same fate as a lot of towns in West Virginia. As far back as the 1860s and for decades to come, even into modern day, mills, factories, and mines would close. To no fault of the locals, once booming areas would be reduced to only a shadow of their former selves. But Harper's Ferry is still alive to this day. While it only has a population of about 280, the Harpers Ferry National Historical Park is helping to keep the town and the history alive. This park includes 3 states, West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland, and in 2011 received an estimated 250,000 visitors. That's like 1,000 visitors per resident. That's awesome. As always, I'll provide some links in case you want to plan your own Harper's Ferry adventure. I'd always recommend that. Yeah. And until next time, don't forget to stay wild, stay wonderful. I'll talk to you later, and have a good one.